Hi, I'm putting this video together because I searched all over YouTube to see if there was any good how-to videos to make a multiple ukulele hanging rack and came up very short. If you want to do something super simple, take a vinyl covered utility hook like this, which you can hang the neck of an ukulele in, take a 1x4 like this, and you could just nail it to the wall or screw it to the wall, screw in your U-shaped hooks, and have an ukulele multiple hanger. There you go. That's the very easiest way to do it. But I wanted something that would actually look good in the living room and not have a bunch of screws and nails showing. So the example that we're going to look at in this video is one that's about 4 feet across and is made to hold 5 ukuleles. But you could take the same idea and construction technique and apply it to one that holds 6, 8, or even 10 ukuleles, depending on how many you have and how much wall space you have. One of the things that I thought was really important was to use a wood that complemented how the ukuleles looked without distracting from them too much. So this piece of Brazilian hardwood was something that I found really did that, and it actually didn't need to be stained. The key to this design and what makes it different is actually we're going to use 2 pieces of wood, not just one. This one is a 1x2, and imagine that this white shelf board is the wall. So you can see a cross section of what's going on. So we're actually going to take this one and have this one attached to the wall. We'll have a screw that's 2 inches long through the drywall, which is about as thick as the shelf board, and go right into the stud. So that's going to allow this inner board, the smaller board, to be firmly anchored to the wall. And then there's the outer board, the pretty board that you see. Now I'm going to show you a cross section that, depending on how you mount it in your house, you would never see. But you'd have this one small board, the inner board, inside and tucked behind this nicer outer board. And now for the magic part that most people will never see. Once you've got this skinny board, your hidden board, securely anchored to the wall, the way that you're going to attach this outer nicer board without any screws or nails showing is you're going to actually let your U-hook do the work for you. Now, this is a nicer U-hook than the vinyl ones I showed you earlier. It's black, it's actually coated with a really nice material, and it's actually made to hold up tools in your garage. So you notice with this example that's about 4 feet long, the inner board, the small thin board, is actually cut shorter than the outer board. And you'll want to do that at least a few inches so that when you get this all lined up, basically no one sees the inner board and they just think this outer board is floating from the wall. Now I have some handy clamps here which are very helpful because what I want to do is stabilize the 2 boards together. You're going to want to measure out and mark each of the holes that you're going to put your uks in. So looking at this board, it's 50 inches. Tenor ukuleles, you want to have about 8.5 inches apart, and mark where your first hole is going to go. And then if you stick with 8.5 inch intervals, you continue all the way across to the other side. So I'm doing this expeditiously here, but you'll want to carefully mark these. There's 1, 2, just every 8.5 inches, 4, 5, and so on. I'm going to tilt this up so you can see the cross section. You want to drill a hole that goes through the first top board completely, but doesn't go all the way through the second board. Do that with a drill bit size that works with whatever U-shaped hook that you've decided it's on. Now I would go ahead and just start drilling on my mark here, but one thing that I would really suggest in this is to be very consistent with your depth, putting a little bit of black electrical tape or other tape that can mark the end of your drilling, and that will give you a nice consistent depth for all of your holes. So now with my drill bit marked off for consistent depth and my clamps holding together the outside board and the hidden board, I'm going to go ahead and drill my holes. Now that I've drilled 2 sample holes, I'm going to show you how this whole thing holds itself together. As we basically screw in this thick U-shaped utility hook, and it's going all the way in past the top board into the second board. And it keeps going in and getting tighter and tighter. And that's pretty good, at least for this demonstration. Now I'm going to take my clamps off and you'll see why this is so useful. So now we're at the part where you can finally hang the components that you've just built on the wall. 5 U-hooks with vinyl covering on some nice Brazilian hardwood. Of course, we have the other piece, which we're actually going to mount to the wall. And this is just a 2x1 regular pine. So this one now will be invisible. It's going to be what we actually put up and hang on the wall. And then this will attach only to this piece of wood and not go into the wall. Okay, so there's going to be some tools that you need. Ideally, you have one of these stud finders, which you can move along the wall, and it'll tell you where you have a stud. And you can see I've pre-marked and drilled a hole here. Most homes are going to have a stud roughly 1 every 16 inches, so you may want to have a ruler around. If you want your ukulele multi-hanger to be level, you might want to have one of these levels around. Using the stud finder, I found one stud. I marked where 2 others should be using the level. I'm going to look at where do I want this to be on the wall, because I can pick anywhere. So I'm just going to eyeball it about right here. Mark where I want that hole to go. And we'll make it happen. So for the screw that goes into the wall, we're getting a 2-inch long wood screw. So there's going to be plenty of length to go through not only this wood, but also the drywall that's behind it, and then find the wood stud that's behind that. All right, before we put in any more holes, we're going to make sure this is level, just the way we want it. And second hole. So now that we've drilled the hole, I like to kind of give it a little bit bigger on the top. It's going to allow a little bit of room for that screw so it goes in and it will stay flush. And bring it all the way in. There you go, nice and flush. All right, so now you're at the part that's the fun part. You've got this pre-drilled 5 different holes for your 5 ukulele U-hooks all ready to go. 2 screws that are taking this supporting piece and putting them directly into the studs that are behind the drywall. This would hold literally hundreds of pounds. Of course, your ukuleles don't weigh that much, so it doesn't have to be that strong. You could probably put 5, 6, 7, 8 with only 2 screws, but you might want to use 3 or 4 if you think you've got kids in your house who are going to hang off of this like it's a jungle gym. Okay, so you can see the 5 U-hooks coming through here on the back side. I'm just going to match those up with the pre-drilled holes. And now is the fun part, because you get to finish it by hand. By drilling the holes on that support piece of wood the right size, each one of these U-hooks will now attach your nice finished piece of wood to the support piece that's attached to the wall. And none of these will put big huge hooks into your wall, so there's nothing to hurt your wall except for 2 tiny screw holes that are going into drywall. And so that's about it. This is our 5th hook. And once that's in, now this is solid. So there you have it. A multiple ukulele hanger on a nice piece of finished wood, all for the cost of less than $20. Now, you might remember from earlier we mentioned spacing these out about 8.5 to 9 inches apart. That's for tenor ukuleles. If you had more ukuleles that are smaller, you might want to put these a little closer together. You can see that these concert-sized ukuleles tend to have a bigger gap, but if you go up to 8.5 to 9 inches, you pretty much can put anything on there. So I hope this was useful. Again, $20, there's your finished product.